So there is a warrant out right now for the arrest of Nate Diaz for second-degree battery, and this is a very, very serious situation, so I need to make a video about it. Everyone knows why this warrant is out on Nate Diaz. He got into an entanglement with that guy, Fake Paul, I think he's called. He looks a lot like Logan Paul, and him and Nate Diaz got into a little bit of a scuffle where basically Nate Diaz was in a little bit of a street fight group brawl. And then this guy comes up to Nate Diaz and says, I don't want it, and says something along those lines, putting his hands up, trying to, I don't know if he was trying to, but he's looking like he's trying to defuse the situation. Whether or not this was a tactic for him to make Nate Diaz put his hands down and lower his guard so he could then sucker punch Nate Diaz, who knows? But the fact is, he looks like he's trying to defuse the situation. The camera pans away from the situation and pans back to them after Nate Diaz has put him in a guillotine. Now, it's unclear, and maybe this will help Nate Diaz in court if it does go there, which no doubt it will. It's unclear whether or not Nate Diaz put him in the guillotine or whether or not the guy who looks like Logan Paul shot a takedown on him out of nowhere to try and restrain him. But either way, what we do see on camera is Nate Diaz, the former UFC legend, put this guy in a guillotine, knee him to the body, choke him unconscious, and then let his unconscious body drop towards the concrete where he cracks open the back of his head. If you haven't seen that follow-up video from the guy who looks like Logan Paul, which is a very sad thing to be known for, in all honesty, but that's how he's making his living. Respect to him, I guess. Any way you can do it, any way you can hustle, I'm not gonna hate him for it, but either way, there's a follow-up video where he shows the back of his head on camera and talks about the fact that that's unfair, Nate, that's BS, you snuck up on me, I didn't see it coming, and all this type of stuff. And he's got a massive crack in the back of his head, and there's blood in his hair around the back of his head. So that's on camera. Also, him getting guillotined is on camera, him getting kneed to the body, him getting laid down on the floor unconscious by Nate Diaz where his head bounces off the concrete, is all on camera. And I've seen a lot of people talking about this situation. And there's like, everyone's just completely justifying Nate Diaz for absolutely stupid reasons. And I can't stand it whatsoever. Like, they don't know the situation. But because it's Nate Diaz, you've got people on like, I'm looking at the Full Violence Instagram post of this. Free him. Like, he's not in jail, okay? But there's people saying, free him. Like, you don't know. Like, Nate Diaz could have just seen this guy that looks like Logan Paul, started on him for no reason, as the guy is saying, I don't want to fight you, Nate, I'm not Logan Paul, and trying to defuse the situation. We don't know this or not, but the situation could be Nate Diaz latched this guy into a guillotine and then dropped his body unconscious on the floor for no reason. Like, there might be no reason for this, and Nate Diaz has just done this to someone. And immediately the absolute idiots online are saying, free him, self-defense. Like, they don't even... I don't understand how... It's just so silly, man. It's so silly. It really is. Why can't people leave this man alone in public settings? Soon as he retaliates, they want to play victim. The guy walked up to him, yeah, and said, calm down, calm down. I don't want to... Put his hands up like that. The camera goes away. We don't know what happened. I don't know why all of these Nate Diaz defenders are all of a sudden coming out of the woodwork saying, the guy sucker punched him off. Like, we don't know. You know what I mean? So we've got to kind of, in these types of situations, not assume the worst, but at least consider the reality of the worst possible outcome here. And I'm going to say this right now on video. I've seen a bunch of other MMA channels and MMA people saying, Nate did nothing wrong, self-defense, talk shit, get hit, and all this type of stuff. Everyone's talking tough on Twitter nowadays and don't want it in person. The fact is, like, Nate Diaz just probably caused a bit of CTE to some random dude who looked like Logan Paul. You can't do that to people. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's time right now. And I'm going to look up the age of Nate Diaz right now. Okay? Nate Diaz age. Just going to look it up real quick. He's 38 years of age. Okay? 38 years of age. He is a father with 2 children. I'm just going to make this... Maybe I'll get choked out in the street and you'll see my lifeless body hit the concrete. Okay? Maybe that'll be something in the near future. Who knows? But I'm just going to make this statement, and hopefully you guys agree with me here. Nate Diaz has children. He's nearing 40 years of age. Here's an idea. You're a millionaire as well. You've made it out of the street. Stop getting into random street fights with people non-stop. It's not like this is a one-off situation. Hey, Nate Diaz, stop getting into street fights non-stop and causing all these issues for yourself. Like, we don't see this a lot with other fighters. You know what I mean? No one's just randomly starting on a UFC fighter. I highly doubt all of these situations are entirely provoked by someone else other than Nate Diaz. In all of these situations. Like, didn't Nate Diaz just at like an event that took place before? Like that influencer boxing event? Look behind him, maybe someone said something behind him and then just lob a full bottle at the dude and start another altercation there on like the night before. Like, how about we actually hold Nate accountable for a second here? You've made it out the trenches, dude. This is like the stupid mindset that people just keep with them after they've gotten out of having to live under that mindset. Why do you do this? You have kids. You're nearing 40 years of age. You're a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. You're set for life. Can we not choke out a Logan Paul lookalike, please? Can you just hold off a second? You are a thug. You're a gangster, dude. Can we stop having to prove it non-stop? And this isn't a one-off thing for Nate Diaz. So I'm going to be a little bit more on this. Like, I've seen a clip on YouTube Shorts of Shane Gillis. And someone looked at him funny. So he threw a front kick at them. This was a story Shane Gillis was telling about Nate Diaz. And he did an impression of Nate at the time as well. But Shane Gillis was basically saying that some dude looked at them at one point during the time they were out clubbing. And then Nate just front kicked the dude and started a scuffle there. No shit, eventually a warrant is out for his arrest. After all of these scuffles he's been in. All of the moments we've seen of Nate Diaz in a group brawl. Even when he was an active UFC fighter, that can kind of be covered by the UFC. And not a lot of them get in trouble for that type of stuff outside of McGregor throwing a dolly through a bus and stuff like that. It's time to be hard on him a little bit here. Grow up. You're nearing 40. Like, I heard someone say this. I don't know who it was. Like a decade ago. Like, gangsters aren't out of choice. You know what I mean? They're out of like necessity. You don't need to be doing this anymore. So stop doing it. Like, seriously. I don't know what crowd he's constantly in these types of scuffles. You can't take him anywhere without something happening. Without something going on with Nate Diaz. I'm going to get a bunch of dislikes for this video. But you just can't be doing this. And maybe the Logan Paul dude was talking shit to Nate Diaz. Maybe just before he said calm down, he punched Nate Diaz off camera. But we don't see any of that. All we see is a Logan Paul lookalike try and defuse a situation and make it clear that he doesn't want to fight Nate Diaz. Which could be a move to set up a sucker punch. I don't deny that whatsoever. Could be a move. But we see a Logan Paul lookalike hold his hands up and go, I don't want it, dude. I don't want any problems. And then the camera goes off. The camera comes back and Nate's got him in a guillotine and is like just leaving his lifeless body onto the ground. People die like that, man. You know what I mean? You hear stories around like, oh, you know, when I was growing up, I'd always hear a story about a friend of a friend or one of my cousin's friends knocked some guy out in a bar fight and the guy died and now he's doing like time in prison. You always hear that story growing up if you grow up in certain environments. Oh, there was a bar fight and, you know, you got to not do that. And your parents always tell you this growing up or someone older in your family always tells you this. That guy, he fell full body weight backwards onto concrete and smacked the back of his head off the concrete. He was probably drunk as well. People die like that, and that's Nate Diaz in prison for life, and he's got 2 kids. You know what I mean? Like, people do die from that stuff. That's how they die. They don't die from the punch. They die from hitting the concrete because guess what? The concrete's got nowhere to go. That's why we have a canvas in the boxing ring and in the octagon. So the canvas has some give. The concrete has no give. So the give is your skull and your brain. Like, you're 38, you've made it, you're a millionaire, you're about to make even more millions to fight Jake Paul. Stop. Please. What's going on? And I want to bring up another thing here. Nate Diaz tweet about fighters acting like children. Didn't he do something a while ago where he tweeted out something about... Here we go. I'm going to see it here. I can't find the actual tweet about it, but there was a tweet that Nate Diaz made a while ago. I'm sure there was, when all of these fighters were getting into little scuffles. Here we go. Nate Diaz says UFC stars need to stop getting arrested for stupid shit as rival reacts to Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal charges. He put out a tweet talking about that situation and saying, like, you guys need to... P.S. All you UFC fighters need to stop getting arrested for stupid shit. You're acting like animals. Irresponsible little kids. Get your shit together. Drive safe, please, and act right. Fuck. He's out here doing this every week. Like, I'm telling you, it's funny now. Everyone's laughing at this. And when I first saw it, I was smiling like, oh my God, he's put this guy in a guillotine. That's crazy. As soon as the guy's head hit the concrete, I thought to myself, oh shit, though. I hope he's all right. You know what I mean? Like, this guy might have kids. He might have a mum. You know what I mean? Like, he could die from that. So is there a video where he's all right and he's up and speaking again about the situation? Like, this is how people die randomly and then people get put in jail for life. So I'm going to be the voice of reason on this again while everyone else is laughing about it and saying, that dude got what he deserved. He hangs around Jake and Logan Paul. And I'm going to look out for Nate Diaz. You're hanging around the wrong people, dude. You're 38, 2 kids. I know I keep restating this, but it needs to be restated. You've got 2 kids. A lot of people don't realize that because you don't put them out there, but he does. You know what I mean? You've got a family. You've got millions. You're set for life. Anytime you go to an event, there's always a scuffle. It feels that way. And one of these times, like maybe this time, you're going to end up doing some jail time for it, and it's going to ruin your life that you've done so well in fixing and getting to a point of comfort. So stop fucking around and grow up. One of the comments here, Wealth, is the person on the full violence post. He said if it isn't the consequences of his own actions. 2nd-degree battery. I doubt Nate Diaz is going to go to jail. And if you want me to talk about the legal side of this, I'm not a legal expert on this. But to me, it doesn't look good when you've got a guy, Nate Diaz, who's constantly had these types of scuffles throughout his entire life. Probably no stranger to a run-in with the law before. This isn't like a first-time thing. Like, oh, he was an absolute angel before this, Your Honor. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like that. There's like prior things that he's had in his life that's going to add into the case as well. Some guy, a Logan Paul lookalike, looks like he's trying to defuse a fight on camera. The camera moves away and back, and Nate Diaz has got him in a guillotine. Who knows what happened, but who knows what the judge is going to side with. The judges side towards the victim even without video evidence a lot of times. You know what I mean? You hear about this stuff. I know he's got money and he's obviously got a good lawyer, so I doubt he's going to do jail time. But my man's going to get sued beyond belief for this. He's going to get sued for this, 100%. The Logan Paul dude smacked his head off the concrete. He can claim a whole bunch of things. He had blood coming out the back of his head. It's on camera that it was Nate Diaz that did it, and he was trying to defuse the situation. That's going to be his argument. It just seems like you got to stop this, man. And you see them all, like, all these 40-year-old men. It's actually kind of cringe. I'm going to say it right now at the end of this video. That whole act is kind of cringe. When you're, like, you can see like a 14. I remember being 16, 15. I'm walking around like a bit of a gangster. Doing a little bit of a bop. Looking at people screwing everyone as I walked past them. You're nearly 40 and have kids. And he's going around with Chris Avila and all these other middle-aged men with children. What? Hold up. You want to talk some shit? Bow, bow. You know what I mean? And he's starting fights with random people like, what are you looking at? What? Want to get knocked out or what? I'll choke you out. You know what I mean? Like he's just starting shit, walking around like constantly looking at everyone like, yeah, I'm tough. We know. You've been in the UFC for however many decades now. Let's start fucking making the money and raising your kids and start acting like a fucking parent, dude. pissing me off, some of this shit, man. What happened to fathers nowadays? I'm not directly applying that to Nate Diaz, but I'm seeing another full violence post about Masvidal. Everyone praised him for doing what he did to Covington. He could have faced jail time for that shit, and he's got kids. So it's like, when are we going to stop glorifying this fucking childish behavior from 40-year-old men? Am I wrong, or is everyone... I do fart noises in stream, and I'm 24. I get it. I don't act my age at times either. But on serious topics, I feel like I act well above my age. I'm seeing so many, especially nowadays, 30 and 40-year-old men acting like teenagers with the way they're handling their life. It's weird, man. It's so weird seeing this shit go down. Like, obviously you're going to get arrested for that. And now we could lose the Jake Paul fight, which is not a bad thing, but it is for Nate Diaz, because no doubt he was going to get multiple millions for that one. Multiple millions for that fight. And he could face jail time. I doubt it. Rich people don't go to jail. It's just how it is. But yeah, we'll see what happens, man. Tough situation. Stop getting in street fights. You're 40. Like, there can't be that many reasons to get into street fights. Like, let your people do it for you. Maybe it'll come out that, you know, the guy was provoking him and actually punched him before the moment and now doesn't want any, and he was trying to defuse it afterwards. But until then, I'm going to hold on this point. Like, grow up, dude. You know what I mean? You got 2 kids. Like, it ain't worth that shit. It ain't worth it. Like, why aren't you at home right now? Why are you at an influencer boxing event? Like, I guess Chris Avila was fighting, I guess. Fair enough. But, like, still. When are men in their 40s with kids going to start being, like, good parents again? You know what I mean? My parents weren't out fucking around. They were at home. You know what I mean? It's just, they weren't out getting in trouble on the weekend. Thank God I knew people's parents who were. Like, why is there just fair game to keep allowing this? And everyone praises it. Like, self-defense, free him. Like, fucking hell. About time there was some consequence. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.